Well, good evening, my Darkness Militia. Today we'll be looking at the second part of the initial video I did, called Dear David, the true story of Adam Ellis. We'll be following up where I left off, so be sure to check out that video first if you haven't. I'll leave the link in the description below. I've been having so many nightmares lately. They're way more intense than my usual dreams, too. I don't know if it's because I'm stressed or if it's something else. This afternoon I took a nap and had a dream I haven't been able to shake. In the dream I was lying in bed and rolled over to face the other direction. On the pillow next to me was a severed head with a bloody spine attached, snaking down the bed. The head was staring right at me, somehow still alive. It had this huge smile plastered on its face. Horrified, I screamed, "What happened to you?" The head smiled even bigger. "It feels great," the head groaned. After that, I woke up. It was dark outside by then. Everything was quiet. Other dreams have been just as strange. Things like dark figures staring in my windows, even though I live on the second floor. Stuff that makes no sense in relation to what I've been experiencing in real life. After that dream about the head, I've been feeling uneasy all night. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I decided to go for a walk, if for no other reason than to get out of my apartment. I went to a bodega a few blocks away to get a snack. On the way, I had to pass the warehouse that was boarded up a few weeks ago. It's actually on the way to everything. I pass it twice a day just to get to the subway. I hurried past it, since it freaks me out now. At the bodega, I got some Doritos and a seltzer, then made my way back home. When I passed the warehouse a second time, I heard a dull thunk from the other side of the shutters. I froze in place, but there was no other sound after that. I probably should have just continued on, but curiosity got the better of me. There was a grated window next to the doors about a foot above my head, too high to see into. So I thought to myself, okay, I'm gonna hold my phone up to the window, take one photo, and then run for my life. I made sure my flash was on, positioned my camera lens through one of the grates, and snapped a photo. I almost thought I saw movement when the flash went off, but I couldn't be certain. The light bounced off the grates and was pretty blinding. I couldn't even look at the photo. I just ran all the way home. I was too jumpy to look at it for a while. I just ate my Doritos nervously. When I finally did look at the photo, here's what I saw. It seemed to be a different part of the warehouse. Maybe an office. There was a bunch of old insulation in what looked like a filing cabinet in a ripped up leather desk chair. Then I noticed something else. In the upper right corner, something that looked like a face. The more I stared at it, the more I started to look like a nondescript blur. Now I can't even be sure what I'm seeing. Maybe I'm too deep into this, and my brain wants to see David when he's not there. But here, I messed with the filters on my phone a bit. Tell me this doesn't look like him. The past few days have been fairly quiet. I haven't been spending much time at home. I leave for Japan in a couple hours. I've been trying to avoid anything weird before my trip. I still feel like this all might stop if I just leave it for a couple weeks. Whatever happens, I want to thank everyone for their kind thoughts and concerns. This whole ordeal has been stressful and it means a lot. It makes me feel like I'm not going through this alone. See you in a couple weeks. I bought a votive tablet at the shrine I'm at in Japan. It's my last full day in Japan. The past couple weeks have been pretty peaceful. I have people taking care of the cats, and they say they've been doing fine. This morning I went for a long walk around Sapporo. I never really planned my vacations. I like to wander a lot and see what I find. I came across this statue in a park. I couldn't find out any real information about it online, but it was weird and pretty. I was taking pictures of it from different angles since it's cylindrical. I moved around to one side and almost dropped my phone at what I saw. It felt too similar to be coincidence. I felt dizzy staring up at it. This kid with a dented head. I don't know, maybe I'm overreacting? Maybe this is nothing? It doesn't feel like nothing. Anyway, I have to pack for my flight home in the morning. It'll be good to see the cats again, at least. I made it home safely. The cats are fine, if a little more talkative than usual. Weird things have been happening with the electricity in my apartment this week. First, 2 bulbs have burned out in the hallway in less than a week. At this point, I've just left it alone rather than get a ladder again. But the strangest thing has to do with the backlight on my TV. It's an LED strip that plugs into the TV itself via USB. The TV has to be on in order for the backlight to be on. But last night, the backlight was flickering on and off by itself. I noticed it just sometime before dawn, when I woke up and went into the kitchen to get some water. I'd barely gotten back into bed again when I saw a faint light come on in the living room. After a few seconds, it went dark again. I went back into the living room and stood there watching the backlight go on and off, for at least a few minutes. It was bizarre. Eventually it stopped, and now the backlight doesn't work at all. It's only a couple months old, so it shouldn't be dead already. Anyway, I couldn't get back to sleep, so I went to the diner near my apartment. It was the only thing open at 4 a.m. I had eggs over easy with ham. It was too much ham, but the eggs are pretty good. When I got back home, the sun was starting to come up, so I figured I might as well shower and go into work early. I showered and brushed my teeth, then headed into the bedroom to get dressed. As I passed the front door, I thought I heard a faint scratching sound from the other side. It was so soft. I wasn't sure it had really happened. I went over to the door, but I was too scared to look through the peephole. I couldn't bring myself to actually put my face that close to the sound, so I opted to take a photo through the peephole instead. Since there's a skylight just outside my door, the hall was awash in a faint yellow-green light. I snapped a couple photos. At first, the pictures didn't seem like anything, just blurriness. But as I analyzed it and started noticing things, part of a face, an ear, and an eye staring back at me. I think maybe it's time to get someone else involved. It's obvious this isn't going to stop until I do something. I'm just not sure what that is yet. I'll let you all know when I figure it out. Sorry for the radio silence the past couple weeks. First, I had a friend come over to do some cleansing stuff. She did the whole apartment and hallway. A lot of self-proclaimed professional mediums have reached out, plus about a dozen ghost hunter TV shows. I've declined them all because I don't really want strangers in my house sensationalizing what's going on. So instead, I had a friend come over and cleanse the place. And for about a week or so, it seemed like it worked. Things appeared to go back to normal. The cats weren't gathering at the door anymore. I stopped having dreams. It was starting to seem like it was over. Then one morning last week, I was walking to work and passed the shuttered warehouse as usual. This time, all the metal doors were wide open, sunlight pouring in. The warehouse was still mostly empty, except for one thing. there was a hearse parked near the back wall. The warehouse has been closed for over 2 months. I have no idea why it was open that day. Nobody was around. It was weird, but I tried not to think about it. It's not all that strange to see a hearse, I guess. Like, they have to park somewhere. I tried to put it out of my mind, and the next several days were uneventful. But something else happened last night. It was around 11 or so when I was watching TV on the couch. I went into the dining room to get a drink from the fridge and noticed both the cats sitting by the far window, staring up at it. The window looks out onto the roof of the business next door. I glanced out the window but didn't see anything. I figured that maybe there was a mouse in the wall or something. I shrugged and grabbed a beer from the fridge. As I went into the kitchen to get the bottle opener, I noticed something. There was a window in the kitchen, which looks out onto the same roof. And someone was staring at me while standing on the roof. I immediately ducked down. I reached up and flicked off the light switch. I peered over the window, but couldn't see much. My phone was in my pocket, so I grabbed it and took a photo. It was blurry and dark, but I swear someone was out there. I tried to take a better photo, but the figure had disappeared. I closed all the blinds and made sure the door was locked, and then drank like 5 more beers until I was too drunk to be scared. But now I feel like I'm back at square one. I'm sure it was him. He's not going away. I don't know what to do. It's been about 4 months since the first time I dreamed of David. This might be long, but stick with me. Last night I dreamed about him again. It was almost exactly the same as the first time I saw him. In the dream, I saw him in a chair. I don't have the green chair in my room anymore. This time it was a recliner I've had for years. He was staring right at me, just like the first time. Again, I felt paralyzed and could barely move. But this time, something was different. I still felt mostly immobile, but I could squirm just a little bit. I felt more alert. I could move my hands somewhat. David glared at me, and I dreaded what I knew was coming. He was going to get out of the chair and come toward me like before. I had to do something. I keep my phone next to me on the bed, and I somehow managed to get a hold of it. I thought, if David is going to kill me, maybe I can at least get evidence on my phone. I started snapping pictures in the dark. Sure enough, he crawled down off the chair and began shuffling toward me. He moved slowly, like it was a struggle for him. I felt terrified, but I kept taking photos. David limped closer toward me, never taking his eyes off me. Soon, I was face to face with him. He started muttering something, too quiet for me to understand. I watched as his eyes rolled back in his head until they were all white. I tried to writhe away from him, but I could barely move. I stared in horror as he began crawling up onto my bed, still murmuring something. And that's when I woke up. Same as before. Broad daylight, no trace of David anywhere. It's almost routine now, but it was a dream after all, so I got up and went to work. And after a while, the stress of the dream melted away. I wasn't even going to write about this since I wouldn't really be new information. But tonight I noticed something that petrified me. I went into my phone to find a picture from a couple days ago, and I saw dozens of pitch black photos in my camera roll, all from last night. It's better to just show you. Turn up your brightness because they're pretty dark. This is the one that made my heart drop. Usually I can come up with some excuse for what's happening, but I have no logical explanation for this. So now I'm sitting here on my couch freaking out. I certainly won't be able to sleep. I just felt like I needed to get this out. For everyone asking, yes, I'm alive. I've been on the quiet side because there's something I'm trying to investigate and I'm not sure how to yet. I'd rather not tweet unless I have something substantial to share. It's also sort of hard to explain the logistics of what I'm trying to find out, but I'll do my best. Basically, there's a part of my apartment I'm just now learning about. At least that's what I think. To refresh your memory, I live in a duplex. I used to live on the first floor and now I live on the second floor. It's a long, boxy building that looks like this. The other week, I was tweeting the most recent update from the living room couch. About 30 seconds after I'd sent the last tweet, I heard a thump directly above my head as if someone above me had dropped something on the floor. Which is impossible, since I'm in the top apartment. There's also no way to access the roof. There aren't any ladders on the outside of the building. The only way you'd get on the roof is through a skylight in the hallway. There are no trees in the immediate vicinity. It definitely wasn't pipes either. It was distinctly the sound of something falling to the floor. My building is old and makes lots of noises, but this was a new sound and it startled me. So I'm thinking, is there some secret crawl space in my home? I look all over my apartment, but I can't figure it out. So I go into the hallway, and that's when something dawns on me. There's no real way to ease into this, so I'll just say it. There's a mysterious hatch in my hallway. I've always known about it, but I just assumed it opened directly to the roof. It's really high above the stairs, so I always figured it was impossible to access without some sort of fancy professional ladder. I took this video so you can now see how high it is. I see that hatch every morning when I leave for work and think nothing of it. But this time something dawned on me. It can't lead to the roof, because it's actually below the roof. I'm about to spring some simple math on you, so I apologize in advance. First, the skylight is flat with the roof. I checked Google Earth to make sure. The hatch is about 3 feet below the skylight, meaning there's about 3 feet of empty space between the two openings. I think maybe the hatch leads to a short ladder going to the roof. But even if that's the case, the hatch is level with all the ceilings in my apartment, which means there's 3 feet of empty space all over my apartment. I was ready to explain this away for a few reasons. One, it might just be some sort of insulated space that all residential buildings have. I'm not an architect, so what do I know? It didn't seem relevant enough at the time, so I decided I wasn't going to mention it here. But over the past week and a half, I've been hearing more things above me. A few days after the first sound, I heard a similar thump while I was in the kitchen. Then last night, I heard something small clink to the floor and roll about 6 feet before stopping. Something is going on up there. Maybe it's a raccoon, but maybe it's not. I also can't get over the fact that the hatch is in such a weird, inaccessible place over the stairs. I need to investigate. I'm just not sure how to right now. I guess I'll try to buy a long pole off Amazon to see if the hatch even moves. I might have to buy a construction ladder. At any rate, that's why I've been MIA for a minute. I'll keep you posted when I figure out how to get up there. Okay, I bought a pole. If the hatch is movable, I'll either shell out for a ladder or call my landlord to investigate. A lot has happened in the last week, but I was away for Thanksgiving, so I'm just now able to write it all down. The noises from the ceiling haven't let up, but the pole I ordered didn't arrive before I had to leave for the holiday, so I didn't actually get it until late Friday night. I planned to investigate the next morning and went to bed. I'd barely fallen asleep when I woke up to an incredibly loud crash above me. It sounded like someone had dropped a bowling ball. I bolted upright in bed and immediately felt strange. There was a weird energy all around me. I can't explain it. After about a minute, I heard another crash. I briefly thought about grabbing my shoes and booking it, but that would mean passing under the hatch, and that seemed like a bad idea. So instead, I just listened and waited, though I'm not sure for what. The crash happened again, and then again, probably 15 times in a row, followed by a long silence. Then I heard a smaller, creaky sound from the hallway. In my mind, I registered it as a footstep, but it really could have been anything. I stayed still, but there were no more sounds after that. I lay back down, still tense and nervous, but I must have fallen asleep at some point because I woke up the next morning and everything seemed normal again. I got dressed and left to go get a bagel, same as every Saturday. As I made my way down the stairs, something crunched under my feet. I looked down and noticed a pile of debris on the stairs, directly under the hatch. It looked like dirt, but I couldn't tell for certain. It could have been old plaster or something. I glanced up at the hatch and noticed something else peculiar. The edge of something was caught in it, barely poking out. It's hard to see because it's so far up, but I took a photo. At that point, bagels were the last thing on my mind. I went back upstairs and grabbed the pole. I set my camera on the coat wardrobe at the top of the stairs and hit record, just to make sure it would be caught on video if a demon burst out of the hatch. Here's the video. I jumped out of the way and practically fell down the stairs trying to dodge whatever it was that fell. At first I thought it was a dead squirrel, which would honestly explain a lot. It hit the steps and bounced down to the first floor. I went upstairs to get my phone and collapsed the pole, since it's so long and unwieldy, then went back downstairs to investigate the object that fell. At first I wasn't even sure what it was. It was a dingy, faded black. I picked it up and realized what it was. It was a small leather shoe. I hustled back upstairs and texted my landlord. I told him I thought there was something in the crawl space and asked if he could investigate. He said he'd come by later with a ladder and check it out. A few hours later, my landlord was on a ladder, shining a flashlight into the crawl space. I stared up at him, half expecting something to grab him and yank him into the darkness. He angled his flashlight all around and finally said, "There's nothing up here." But then he was like, "Oh wait." I watched as he reached into the emptiness with his free arm, and when he pulled it back, he had something small and round in his hand. He climbed down the ladder and handed it to me. Again, I wasn't quite sure what I was looking at. It was smooth and shiny, and at first I thought it was an old piece of candy, but it was cold and too heavy to be candy. After a second, I realized it was a marble. It was so worn that it hadn't registered as a marble at first. Its shape was also sort of weird, with a little bump on the end. My landlord seemed unbothered for the most part, and he told me to call him if I heard anything else. I went inside and headed to my office to see if I could figure anything out about this marble that somehow made its way into my ceiling. I had nothing to go on, and in short, I didn't really learn much. But I did figure out that the bump on the marble, I think, apparently in the early 1900s, they made marbles by hand and cut them with big metal scissors, which would mean the marble is probably really old? Anyway, now I have a decrepit old shoe and a marble sitting on my dresser. I guess this is the new normal. Sorry for the long break. I haven't been feeling great this past couple weeks and haven't had time to update. There also wasn't much to say for the most part. I wasn't sleeping well and I was having weird dreams, but they were vague and hard to describe. I'm sleepy all day long and I have been getting sudden bouts of dizziness. I chalked it up to always having earbuds crammed in and made a mental note to get my ears checked. Other than that, things were pretty quiet. I sort of fooled myself into thinking that finding those items in the attic somehow ended all this. Not that that would make much sense. But last week something started to happen. Late on Wednesday, I woke up with a start and felt something strange, like something had just been watching me. I turned on the light, but I was alone. Still, there was this tangible feeling of badness. Everything felt wrong. Sort of like when you have the flu and you wake up at night and can't really tell where you are for a minute. It was a feeling I'm used to. It always accompanies David. People tweet at me a lot saying he might just need help, but I'm certain that's not the case. Every time he shows up, I feel a palpable sense of malice. There's what I felt that night. Malice, dread. But still I was alone and I was so tired I wound up just going back to sleep. I've been so exhausted recently I can barely function. The next night the same thing happened. I woke up suddenly feeling like I had just missed seeing something, like a candle had just gone out and I could still smell it. I thought about using the pet cam from the living room to monitor my bedroom while I slept, but the cord was too short to get to the camera high enough to see the entire room, so I improvised. I downloaded an app that takes a photo every 60 seconds and set my phone on top of a bookcase. It's almost 7 feet tall, so it had a pretty good view of my bed and the surrounding room. Then I went to sleep. Just like before, I jolted awake hours later, feeling the same unease. I turned on the light and hurried out of my bed to get my phone from the bookcase. There were probably 350 photos to scroll through. The vast majority of them were me sleeping in an empty room. It's sort of dark, but you can see me sleeping. I'd left a couple of nightlights on just in case anything showed up, but for the first 100 or so photos, it was just me in an empty room. Then suddenly he was there, standing on the chair at the foot of the bed staring at me. In the next photo from a minute later, he seems to be staring straight up at the ceiling. Just staring. Then he appears to collapse on the chair. The next dozen photos are all the same. He's completely lifeless. At first I thought he was dead, which obviously doesn't make any sense. I looked over at the chair, half expecting him to still be there, but it was empty. But then, in the next photo, he's gone. The room, it's totally empty again. He's gone in the next several photos, too. I figured maybe that was it, but I kept swiping through the photos. About 15 photos later, he was back, standing next to the bed. It was just like the last time I saw him. That's when my heart started to race. I didn't want to look at the rest of the photos, but I knew I had to. I swiped to the next photo and my heart sank into my stomach. He was on the bed, inches from me, staring down at me sleeping. The next one was worse. In the next photo, he's staring right at the camera. After that, there's seemingly nothing. He disappears again, and the rest of the scroll is just me alone in my room again. That is, until the last photo. Here's the final photo on the scroll. I'm at a loss for words. That malformed ear, the stringy hair. I didn't even know what to think. I looked all over my room but couldn't find anything, and honestly, I've been so exhausted I didn't know how to process it. Even now, all I want to do is just go to sleep. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoy that horrifying true story. Be sure to subscribe and like the video if you enjoyed it. Click the little bell so you can be notified when the next update video pops up. Be sure to answer the question in the comment section below. And as always, my Darkness Militia, have a terrifying evening.